Until very recently, this image for the average Indian meant growth, progress, prosperity, and development. But after what happened in Bhopal, which goes beyond words, the evocations are starkly different. At long last, our sense of smell seems to have opened up to the poison gas hovering all around us. Actually, the issue is not just the poison fumes. It is the ruthless way in which our Mother Nature is being plundered, molested, and raped. A few months ago, a Malayali poet wrote, "Polluted is this water, polluted is this air, polluted is my mind, polluted this earth and heaven."
The problem is grave. The Sahya is being denuded day by day. And all our 44 rivers are drying up. The groundwater level is falling. We are not doing much to save our forests. And we are all partakers of this spoil. You know, the project-minded officials, the encroachers, the timber kings and the rubber kings, then the settlers, the starving tribal, the poor people of our land, and the legal and illegal fellers of forests, all are responsible for this crime.
For the outsider, South India means the rock-cut temple. And what does Kerala mean? Kerala means backwaters, lagoons, coconut palms, and Kathakali. Kerala is not a mere picture postcard. It's a land of real people. People like everywhere else in the third world. People who struggle from dawn to dusk. Their bare hands can speak better than what all others can speak for them. Their literacy rate is the highest in India. Out of every 100 people you see here, more than 70 can read and write. Their daily struggles are no different from that of other Indians. In Kerala too, people are in a hurry to reach their daily 10 o'clock destinations. But there's one big difference. They have always been in the forefront as far as social changes are concerned. In this film, we are talking about some voluntary organizations in Kerala, mass-based organizations, which have played a great role in heralding such changes. As a rule, most of us are not bothered about the way in which other people around us live. Most of us simply don't care when a tree is cut or the air or water around us is polluted. Most of us simply don't care. The KSSP, or the Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, is the main voluntary organization in that state, fighting such causes for the last 23 years. How did such an organization come into being in a place like Kerala? Even before the Stockholm Conference of 1972,
Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, its whole character, in fact, has its roots, I think, in the earlier history of other social movements in this part of India. Certainly, for instance, there is the earlier Granthasala Sangam, the rural library movement, about which people outside really know very little. The fact that in Kerala there are as many as 4,000 village libraries, more than that now. And if I remember right, they have a total collection of nearly 1 million books, which are in constant circulation among these 4,000 libraries. Now, this movement was also started not under any one particular ideological auspices, but if I remember correctly, by a mixture, an ideological mixture, consisting particularly of some very important Gandhians and also some people who were Marxists. I think that has spilled over also into this Shastra Sahitya Parishad. And that is another aspect which I think is very important, that it is not dominated by any one particular group, but there is a kind of creative tension between different points of view.
One of the most important campaigns that the KSSP took up was the famous Silent Valley issue. Silent Valley is a valley so silent that even crickets don't creak there at night. It is estimated to be 5 million years old and is considered by environmentalists as the last vestige of tropical evergreen forest on the Western Ghats. When the state government decided to set up a hydroelectric project there, saying that it would solve the power crisis in Kerala, KSSP led a militant campaign against the implementation of that project. Sensible and far-sighted people from all walks of life, poets, writers, teachers, students, everyone joined hands to save that genetic treasure house from extinction. After a long-lasting battle of nearly a decade, in 1984, Silent Valley was declared a national park.
Do you think that the valley has been finally saved?
Now the answer is yes and no. Yes, because now the valley has been declared a national park and absolutely no developmental activity will be allowed there. No, because the local people are not yet convinced about the need for preservation of this valley. The controversy has made the developmental practitioners, then the development departments aware of the need for considering the environmental factor also while clearing a developmental project.
Silent Valley was not a popular campaign within Kerala at the grassroots level. But the Chalia pollution issue had immense backing from the people, directly and immediately affected by it. The Reliance factory in Mavur was pumping its chemical waste into the adjoining fields, and land cultivation in those areas was badly affected. KSSP's campaign at least led to the effluents being piped away to the Chalia River. As you can see, the issue has not yet been solved. But how did KSSP go about organizing people?
Well, strictly speaking, we did not go about organizing. People were somewhat organized because they were very seriously affected. When we showed interest in the study of this problem, they came first to help, then to involve.
What about the factory management? How did they react?
They resisted with all might. At first, they totally denied the existence of pollution. And they even alleged that we are foisting false charges. Then the management even raised a slogan that some amount of pollution is inevitable for development. This, in fact, misled majority of the industrial workers who were actually part of the public who are affected by the pollution.
To operate effectively, such a mass-based organization needs adequate monetary resources. KSSP raises its funds every year, mainly through the sale of their books and periodicals.
We sell books worth of 10 lakhs rupees. But occasionally we also receive funds for conducting seminars.
Besides books and periodicals, KSSP also resorts to other mass contact methods, which are more direct.
In the beginning we thought that writing in Malayalam will deliver the goods.
Their street theatre groups travel thousands of kilometers for months together, spreading the message, Science for Social Revolution, and sensitizing the people about burning social problems.
At one stage we felt that through written and spoken words we will not be able to reach the whole of the population.
Our present educational system is under constant attack by these voluntary organizations.
KSSP's opinion is that the education that imparted in our institutions today is not relevant. In other words, it is not life-oriented. What children learn in schools and colleges does not become useful to them later on in their life.
Madam, it's widely alleged that our present education system is creating two patterns of behavior, two cultures, two societies, and even two nations. One Bharat for underprivileged masses, and one India for upwardly social mobile classes. Is this true?
3-year-old, 4-year-old, small children are starting their education and life in a foreign culture. They speak English. They're taught to speak English, which is so difficult to them. But their parents think that this is something good. Money is dividing children. We do not want this mummy-daddy culture that is being promulgated in some of the nursery schools.
Every change in the system has a social science content and a natural science content. And yes, even an artistic content. That is probably the reason why even the poets and writers of Kerala have collaborated in such people's movements. What is the emotional upsurge that a poet experiences when a tree is cut in relation to the social order that creates such a situation?
He feels like any other social being. He feels the disturbance in the system. The ecology is disturbed and is a threat not only to his existence as a man, but also to his sensibility as a writer. I think a poet represents the high point of social responsibility. And when he puts a metaphor or an image together, he is speaking for all men. A poet finds a voice for what the community at large feels, but he also individualizes the whole experience and gives it a proper focus. And therefore, I think he is able to achieve this great liberation of the tension that society as a whole feels. When a tree is felled, it is not just a single tree that is cut down. As I said, the whole environment is threatened. And a poet writes a poem consciously or unconsciously as a kind of natural reaction to this disturbance in the system in which he operates.
Bureaucrat or technocrat, factory worker or peasant, ruler or the ruled. It is high time that each of us started thinking seriously about what is being done to our environment. Do you know the chemical composition of the smoke you see here? We now know what happens when it is MIC or phosgene. What about this frothy liquid that is being pumped into our rivers? Doesn't it dissolve into the water that we and our children drink? Forget us. What will happen to our children when they grow up? Have you ever heard of the Meena Mata syndrome? Well, if you haven't, ask someone who knows about it. We have shown and told you enough. The best we can do now is to quote that Malayali poet once again. Add capital to interest. Add interest to capital. Fly skull and bones. Distort science. Brandish statistics to vindicate lies. Let us not lose all hope. Our earth is rich, though we keep impoverishing her day by day. She is so rich that if her resources are shared scientifically and her natural balancing cycles are left untampered by man, there will be no child left uncared and hungry, no old woman sick and destitute. Let us not lose all hope. All wildlife has not yet perished. All wildflowers have not yet withered. We still have a reprieve before the white darkness sets in. There is just enough time for us, not to brood, but to act. Let us remember that everything in this universe is related to one another. That is why, when a flower is plucked, the star is disturbed.